Welcome to The Outdoor Agent, where real estate and the great outdoors meet. I'm Dakota Oshley, real estate professional from Griffin, Georgia, and I have a passion for tracking down more than just the perfect property. Here we're going to explore not only the world of real estate, but also dive into a bit of the outdoor life that I enjoy. Whether you're here for real estate insights, a few laughs, or stories from the field, you're in the right place. So let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? It is another great day on the Outdoor Agent podcast, and today I have a special guest, Zach Davis.
Hello.
Zach, you want to give a quick introduction to yourself, man?
Yeah, I'm Zachary Davis. I like to think of myself as an outdoorsman, and I kind of happen to be one of those no-good scum-sucking attorneys.
All right, man. That very anticlimactic. You know,
Yeah,
I thought you were
that's
going
how I
to give
am.
me something like you're the best closing attorney in the Griffin-Spalding County area.
Well, I'll
or-
let the results speak for that.
Okay. Well, guys, Zach is my go-to closing attorney in the area, and really connected on Zach is our passion for real estate and the outdoors, and that's the whole premise of this show. So I hope that we were able to connect with some more folks in the audience here. But
Oh, it's going to happen.
guys, Zach sells himself a little short. He is a seasoned closing attorney, and today I'm going to have him talk briefly on joint right of survivorship and why it's important.
Oh, that's a good one, man.
And why it's important
Yeah,
for both consumers and other agents to
Oh,
really know the ins and outs
especially
of
agents.
that. Let's just briefly explain what joint right of survivorship is and how it might differ from other forms of property ownership.
Basically, joint right of survivorship deed, if you're a married couple, it means if one of you were to pass, the survivor of the two of you, automatically that property is transferred into your name. You don't have to probate. You can skip the whole probate process, transfer the property. But the problem is most people don't even know this is a thing. And so when I'm at the closing table and I look and, the lender tells us to do what we have to do, I don't have control over that. But I see it's not a joint right of survivorship deed, and I've got a married couple. I always talk to them about it. And 9 times out of 10, I'm having to draw up a new deed to file after their initial deed. But what it does is it really just makes things so simple. And if more agents knew about it, really more attorneys knew about it, and more people knew about it, then they'd be talking to the lenders. But, we don't get to really chat with the clients at that point in time. So, really it'd be wonderful for the agents to be able to, just kind of say, hey, guys, talk to your lender about this so we could save a little extra cost for them.
Yeah. Now, Zach, we're both based out of Georgia,
Oh, yeah.
so we're talking specific Georgia here. But as far as your knowledge, is this joint survivorship only a Georgia thing, or is it more national? Or do you know?
Well,
Can you speak on that?
It's not necessarily a national thing. It's very state specific, but every state generally has some form of this. They might call it a different thing. For instance, like July 1st of this year, our state finally allowed us to do what's called transfer on death deeds, which fixed a big problem with life estate deeds. But again, I feel like I'm just getting to the boring stuff. But the great thing about the transfer on death deed is it's completely revocable, and there's so many advantages to that.
So, Zach, give us a very quick and dirty. You mentioned the term revocable. What does revocable
Yeah,
mean for
okay,
everybody
so-
listening?
So, for instance, let's say that I know when I pass, I want my property to go to, let's say, you.
Thank
Well,
you.
then I could do a transfer on death deed, and I can convey that future interest that I have when I pass away to you. So when I pass, it automatically transfers to you. But at any point in time that I wanted to sell my property or do anything else with it, I can take that back without you having to give it back to me. And that's one great thing Georgia did as of July 1st. But other states don't have that. We just got that. And the same thing with joint right of survivorship. Other states might not have that, but they might have some form of it. They just call something else.
So you briefly went over a couple of the advantages of joint right of survivorship, and you mentioned that it avoids probate and it provides an automatic transfer of ownership. What other
Oh, yeah.
what other advantages does a joint right of survivorship allow for?
Well, That's pretty much it. It's just a way to avoid probate,
Yeah.
and really you want to avoid probate as much as you can, because the worst thing that you would have to do if a spouse passed away is have to go through that legal process that could take anywhere from 2.5 months to over a year. And depending upon if someone's challenged it, then you got to deal with unsecured creditors, then you got to deal with this. And so how I do estate planning is I want to avoid it, but I also want to be cost effective, because trust could be $8,000, $10,000. But if I could do a simple deed to accomplish the same thing for $200, it makes more sense to me.
Right. Is there any disadvantages or risks associated with a joint right of survivorship?
Well, I mean, not necessarily. Um, you, if you don't have joint right survivorship and you're both on the deed, then you both have a 1/2 undivided interest. And if one of you passes, then that interest goes into your estate, and then you have to probate it. So I really don't see any disadvantages to it, other than if you are a blended family. So, for instance, if my wife had children before me, and I didn't want my half interest to go to her children, then of course I would not need a joint right survivorship deed. I would need a will. But if you don't have a blended family, you're married, or you're married with no kids, or you're married with kids, but they're both of y'all's kids, then I mean, I don't see any other better option than that kind of deed.
Now, Zach, if someone had already purchased a property and they're not sure on what type of ownership deed they have, how would they go about checking it and making sure that they have this joint right?
Well, our firm is a little strange. We don't charge for kind of consultations. I think the easiest thing to do is just to give a call. It takes all of 5 seconds for me to look up, is this your deed? Do you have joint right survivorship on it? And then if you don't, then of course we can fix it if that's what you're wanting. But if you're wanting to do it yourself, you go on down to the courthouse, pull the deed, or look at the deed that you got in the safe. And if you see any language in there that says with a joint tenancy, comma, and not as tenants in common, comma, for and during their natural life, and then upon the death of either of them, blah, 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 you're good. You're good. If it doesn't have that language, then not so good.
Right. So if someone pulls their deed and they don't see this language, how would they go about getting that amended or redrawn up?
Call an attorney. Now, not just any attorney, just call a real estate attorney. They'll take care of it for you. See, the thing in law is it's just like any kind of profession. You've got your general practitioners like you would with a doctor. You go to for a sinus infection, you go to for this. But then you have your specialist when you need,
Cardiac.
yeah, you need a that, or an ENT, but you have your specialists. And real estate is a specialty. It's not something that a general practitioner practices. They do more of your general litigation, maybe general criminal, general this, but it's very specific to real estate. You want to look for a real estate attorney to make sure you got that correct.
So you've gone through some common scenarios of joint right of survivorships, mostly with married couples and maybe parents and childs. Is there any?
Well, the big thing is I want agents to know
Yeah.
about that, because it saves a lot of time and a lot of questioning at the closing table. Of why wasn't I told this before? Why didn't I know this before? And I always tell people, look, I blame it on the lenders, not your great agent. I'm the underwriters is what I kind of blame it on, because they're not state specific. And but I say I always try my best to make the agent look as shiny as possible. But if the agent doesn't know about it, they don't know to tell their client. And especially when you have new agents coming in, or even agents that haven't had to deal with it, but are seasoned agents, a lot of them don't know about it, but they need to push their client to talk to their lender about that.
Sure. So you're saying that as an agent, we need to be coaching our clients to coach their lenders into writing up
or to instructing us
Okay.
to be able to do that. Now, if it's a cash deal or something like that, we'll talk to them about that because it's cash deal, so
Sure.
we get to interact with them.
Right.
But it's a weird thing, at least in Georgia, in that if a lender's involved, the closing attorney technically represents the lender. There is no lender involved. The closing attorney technically represents the buyer because we always have to represent one party.
Right.
And the lender always tells us what to do. So we represent them. We do what they tell us to do. But, when we're waiting on a funding or, something to that effect, there's some downtime to talk to the potential buyers. And that's when I generally kind of give that whole speech and conversation.
Yeah.
The only thing I really wanted agents to know was that.
Okay.
Everything else, pretty much, agents need to rely on the closing attorneys when they have questions or something to that effect. And that's how I see a good closing attorney. It bothers me to no end when you have an attorney that cannot be reached.
Yes.
That you cannot get in touch with, that you might be a little scared of even, if they're always wearing the suit and tie and you feel like I can't approach this person. The closing attorney needs agents. Without agents, the closing attorney is nothing. Right. So I think agents really need to hone that in and say, if this closing attorney isn't giving me what I need, maybe I need to find someone that does.
Right. Well, it's no different than when a seller client or a buyer client needs to get in touch with their listing agent or buyer's agent and we don't answer the phone.
Yeah, right.
I'm not speaking for myself.
You've got a 24-hour job.
Yeah, we do. And if you can't get a hold of me, I'm either in the deer woods or I'm dead, because even if I'm in the deer,
even in the deer woods, you probably
even
text
in the deer woods, I have enough signal where I can shoot a text out.
So let me ask you something, Dakota.
All right.
What are you sipping on right now?
I don't know. It's whatever you handed me.
Oh, okay. Water.
Yes.
Fire water.
It's fire water.
Specifically Sazerac.
And it is after hours, so it can be an adult beverage if I like.
That's right. And how's that? How are you enjoying that?
It's pretty good, man.
Okay.
Yeah. And if the listeners hadn't already caught on, we're enjoying your back porch. It is a nice, calm evening in Georgia on a Thursday evening. It's how cool would you say it is, Zach? It's finally cooled off some.
Yeah, a little bit, maybe
around 60. Yeah, 60. A little cool and wet. Rain this morning.
And we're getting the sun going down.
And as I'm saying this, we got 4 does coming out of the wood line right here.
That's what I was about to say. Oh, I wonder if something's running them.
Looks like 2 yearlings and a doe.
Oh, yeah, that's the family we've been watching since they were little tykes, little spots.
We'll see if Papa comes after them here. And Zach, I don't know of a better way to segue into some of the fun, juicy stuff that we really wanted to talk about tonight. Was some good old hunting stories.
Well, I want to hear one of yours, man.
One of mine?
If you had to say in the last 2 years,
yeah,
which gives you 2 seasons of deer at least, what would be your most memorable moment?
Well, if I have to just rip a Band-Aid off and be completely honest, Zach, I've only been hunting for a year. Oh. And I bet you would not believe that by looking at me.
Yeah, well, that beard is righteous.
Yeah, and my flannel shirt goes with it too.
Yeah, flannel shirt is
and the mossy oak bottomland hat probably, caps it all off. But
notice I'm judging him. You can't see this at home.
That's
but,
all right.
I'm wearing Crocs right now. Not even camouflage Crocs.
We haven't upgraded to the video podcast yet.
That's why I was announcing it to the viewers.
So, and there they go. And we'll see if Papa comes walking along here.
Yeah, so a little background here is we fenced off this. We got an acre shotgun lot. And behind our lot is 107 acres owned by a family who will not let me hunt on their land, by the way. I've tried. But half that acre back there is nothing but food plot. So, okay.
To getting back to your question.
Yeah.
The bourbon and ADHD is starting to kick in.
Wonderful.
So knowing that I've only been hunting for a year, my most memorable memory, there's a couple made last year now. And
I like it.
And may or may not be podcast allowable, but it's nothing necessarily bad because we all have a story.
You can always cut it.
It's the old Code Brown in the woods story. We all have one.
And did you not have your rifle ready when you drew them in with that Code Brown?
So if I'm going to tell that story, getting into the hunting thing, I go and buy everything you think you need for hunting, which is always way too much.
And the smelly pea.
I didn't buy that.
Okay, smart.
I at least knew better than that. But I had had me a backpack. You know, I watch a lot of the hunting public and some of these guys that are always out on public land for a few days. So I just felt, well, man, I got to take a bunch of shit out there with me.
Oh, they're going to lure you into false pretenses.
Yep.
I've learned that with Meat Eater.
So we're in a club, and we're blessed to be able to have a club where we're able to keep some storage sheds and campers down on the property.
Oh, nice.
And we have 4-wheeler trails, and the county road actually splits the property in half. And anyhow, so I had me a bag that had way too much junk in it. I mean, I got rain gear, I got snacks, I got a whole roll of Charmin, right?
And that is smart.
And,
the whole
and,
roll of Charmin.
and I also have a 1.5 gallon Camelback that the lid didn't get tightened all the way on.
So that rain gear didn't do you any good, huh?
It didn't keep my bag dry, that's for sure. So anyhow, I keep feeling, my bag's wet. Well, I'd get to feeling around in there. I noticed my Camelback's leaking, dumped all my water in the bottom of my bag, and also ruined my roll of Charmin. Go back to camp, go to lunch, however the time frame was. And it may have been a week or two later. It was real slow last season by the time I got down to hunting. And the whole hunting weekend where you're eating eggs and bacon and chili and everything else that you eat at deer camp.
Oh, some biscuits and gravy in the morning, eh?
Biscuits and gravy, and
the old killer for the morning, yeah.
So after 2 or 3 days of that, the dam had to finally open up, right?
Yeah.
And it opened up about 9:00 in a ladder stand.
You didn't even get down from the stand?
No, I got down.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
I'm sure everyone listening, if you've even made it this far, has been in the woods at one time or another, layered up in coveralls and long johns, and had the code brown, and trying to climb down from a 20-foot ladder stand, doing some glute clenches.
Yes, the old flexing. Yes.
And I forgot to get me a new roll of Charmin.
Ooh. So you had essentially an outdoor bidet with the wet Charmin roll.
No, this was a couple weeks later. The wet Charmin roll had been left at camp.
Oh, no.
And a new one had not been put in my bag.
Oh, no.
Thankfully, I'm a good Boy Scout, and I know what leaves to use and what ones not to use.
So you went directly to poison ivy?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to go on and cut my hunting weekend short. So, that's the very toned down version of that one. It was a laughing stock of everybody, because that pretty well ruined the morning hunt, obviously.
Well, not necessarily.
I didn't get by the time I got down, the sweats were engaged and the heavy breathing was engaged, and I didn't get very far from my stand before it just had to happen.
I'm telling you, that does not matter that much. And just to kind of give you an example, even this past weekend, I had buddies down, and we always have our annual it's more of an excuse just to get together. But I had a buddy, and I went out with him, and we got to this little gully, and it's a nice little funnel for deer. And he had to do pretty much the same thing, but the way we hunt, we don't hunt stands much. We stalk and move and sit, and play kind of the terrain. And so he went ahead and did his business, and we walked about, I would say, 30 yards away from there to set up, started rattling. And we had a nice shooter 8 come in. All I'm saying is that smell doesn't matter too much. Also, that same buddy that I was out with regretted not having his rifle in his hand when he was doing the deed and had that shooter buck come across again. That was a different hunting trip, but I think people give way too much credit to deer and smells and this. Now, I'm not saying going out there with a bunch of perfume, because you're going to have yellow jackets on you quick. But, good campfire cover scent or
cigarettes.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in box stands with a guy that chain smokes and just watching him, sit there and spray the aerosol deer piss out, and still they're coming in. I shouldn't say deer piss. Doe and estrus.
Yes, everyone knows that smell. It is one of them. There's a number of smells that you never forget, and you know immediately when you smell them. We won't name them all, but doe and estrus is certainly one of them.
Yeah, that's one that especially I hate you kind of missed out on as a kid, because that was during the period of time of, hey, smell this, it's terrible.
Wipe it under your nose, and a deer will come in, right? Yeah. So growing up, my dad was a machinist, or he still is a machinist and engine builder. So
That's good to know he's still alive.
Yes, it is.
The way you said it before made me think he might have passed away. He was a machinist.
Well, he had a period in time where he wasn't a machinist anymore. He was a roofing salesman, right? So.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha.
But
hey, just glad you got into it. So what got you into it? The watching hunting public?
Yeah.
So what got you into watching hunting public?
Well, I've always liked the outdoors, and of course, all my buddies have always been in it as well. And when I'd be out in the garage on the fall and winter time, and they're out hunting and stuff, and you never hear from your buddies anymore, right?
That's how I got into golfing.
Yeah,
my buddies quit golfing. I did too, and I was thankful for that. Never enjoyed golfing, but anyway,
golf is fun. Golf is fun in between actually having to hit the ball with your buddies. So, but what actually got me into it was truthfully my father-in-law and brother-in-law just invited me to go. And, pretty well anytime we'd get with my wife's family, everyone would talk about their deer hunting and how things was going. And
so you got the bug by a little envy.
Well, no one ever wanted to talk about cars and drag racing. So,
yeah. So you had to do it by necessity.
Yeah. And anyhow, I'll be honest, I'm infected with it now. And that's all I've thought about all year was being able to plant some food plots and go deer hunting this fall.
Well, it's I think it's more of an excuse for us to have a nice, relaxing time in the woods. When you're out there and you're, I hate to say it, but in nature, but everything's quiet. You're watching the woods wake up. You start hearing the birds chirp. You start seeing those blasted squirrels start moving.
Which are still fun to watch. They will make you think a monster's walking through the woods, but sometimes that's all you get to watch.
Yeah. And they start barking, and you ever bark back at them? Start talking to them like, and then they bark back, and yeah.
So I told one of my stories. Let's go straight for your most memorable, Zach.
Well, if I'm going to be honest, I got into hunting late too. Well, at least being someone from, Upson County, Georgia, where the only thing there is to do is hunt fish, which I love fishing. I will say fishing is my first passion, and I absolutely adore fishing. Love the good old Flint River, shoal bass, fly rod, doesn't matter. But I was probably 18, and I had to take the hunter safety course. And I was taking that hunter safety course with Game Warden Gore, and every other person in that class was 8 years old. So it's a little awkward. And it was basically a fancy way to play duck hunt on a TV back then. And but I finally get my hunter safety card, and I go get my hunter's license, and I really didn't know a thing of what I was doing. About 2 days prior, I went out and got a rake and raked all the leaves leading to this ladder stand that I was going to be hunting that another person put up. And I get out there in the middle of the dark and middle of the early morning before the sun rose, and sneaking in and not making a sound because the leaves were raked, and already spooked 2 deer in the middle of the night. We had no idea who each other was. But I get in that stand, it wasn't but about 20 minutes after daybreak, and I have a buck walk up, and I just thought this was normal. I had no prior anything. And so I take a shot at that buck, and I got so excited. It was only a 10-foot ladder stand. I jumped down from that ladder stand, and I start chasing after him. Did it, but I shot him, and I started chasing after him. And that's when I learned my first valuable lesson. One, wait. And I hate to say it, but I did not find that deer until next season, and when I found the skull.
You just ran him, and
I tracked him for hours. Now tracking was something different. I could always find things in the woods, but I'd never been hunting before. But yeah, that I didn't find his skull until the next year, and it was something probably about like 500, 600 yards away from where the stand was. But anyway, that's when I learned my first lesson. But probably most, I really don't, this sounds bad, but I don't have an incredibly memorable hunting experience as far as deer. I've got a more of the memorable hunting experiences that I get to have in my head with buddies.
Yeah.
You know, to me, that's what it's about.
Well, that's really the most fun to me as well is it's the camp. It's the guy banter.
Yeah.
It's you certainly get that time alone in the woods where you can think and reflect, pray if you're a believer, and spend that time in nature, and it
is peaceful,
and
it's incredibly
and
peaceful.
find that peace, and then you go back to camp and you're giving somebody some crap for missing a deer or gut shot in one, or I tell you what, you hadn't heard of the story that happened. So I've only been hunting once this year, so I've just life, and you think that working for yourself you get to go whenever you want to, but that's been the biggest lie.
Oh, we don't even have kids, me and my wife, but yet it seems somehow every weekend we have something to do.
Yeah. So
and it just I don't get it.
Opening, it was rifle openers. What was that, like October 21st, or was it that late? Either way, whatever the date was, I forget off the top of my head.
It was a hot day. I remember that. It was a hot day.
I think I told this story in one of the first episodes, but anyhow, I'll tell you because you hadn't heard it. It was hot, and that afternoon hunt, it was blazing. I was down to bare skin, honestly, in my blind, but two guys shot a doe each.
On opening day rifle?
On opening day rifle.
Shouldn't have been doing that.
Well, we're in Talbot County, so we're
Talbot.
good. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I forget.
Yeah, so for those that
are a little easier down there in Talbot County.
Yeah, we're the tough. You can shoot any doe, but the buck restrictions is the tough part, especially where we're at. But anyhow, they got two does, and they got them loaded up on a utility trailer, and our camp's a mile back on a rough dirt road, and that's all chattered out because remember that was right after all them hurricanes that come through.
Oh yeah.
And
probably some good divots in
the county had been running up and down the road. They've been logging the property adjacent to us, so the log trucks have wore out the road, and that's probably them actually that's been running the bulldozer up and down the road, and from the tracks it's all chattered out. Anyhow, they get them two does on the trailer and they run off to the processor, right? Well, we're sitting there, and it was a Texas-Georgia game. You're a big dog fan.
That was a good game.
That was a good game. That was the best Georgia played all year. They've played like crap since.
Yeah, haven't talked about Ole Miss at all.
But anyhow, I get a phone call from one of the guys that went to the processor, and they showed up. They left with two, and they showed up to the processor with one. They dumped a deer off in the middle of the road.
Oh no! All right, well, I'm glad at least Bigfoot didn't come.
Yeah, they was going so fast down that dirt road, and it chattered, and that trailer got to hopping and skipping so bad it bounced a doe off the trailer. So that's the stuff right there. That's the hunting stories, right?
Yeah. I do feel bad about that doe. That's the one thing that. So in my older age, I've taken deer. You know, I've had my fun with that. I still love the experience, but in truth, I'm kind of bored with whitetail. Just been doing it so long, and so what I do now is a good way to keep your buddies together. So what I do is I have some buddies come down. We've got a lease. We've got 150 acres of a home. We have the privilege to hunt. We have 100 acres of the river we get to hunt. And so I just pretty much guide them now. And the rule is, I'm going to put you on something. If you take it, that's cool. But I get half the meat. And that's what I've started to care about more now. You know, I've gotten the trophies, not concerned with that. Now, don't get me wrong, if there's some monster 12 coming out, I'm probably going to slap my buddy's gun out of the way and, do something. But for the most part, I like to guide. That's kind of what my thing has become. I don't care if I take the shot because I realize I still get the experience. I still get to make a good friend happy, and I still get half the meat. So that was my thing. But what I've wanted to do, and what we wanted to do for the last probably 4 years, thanks to Meat Eater, is head out west and hit some elk. Now that is something that I have a spot for a 6x6 elk in the house, ready to go, shoulder mount.
Yep.
I want that so badly. And I had a buddy saying, hey, we're heading out to New Mexico, go shoot an elk. Someone got a tag. You want to come along? And
Heck yeah.
Yeah. I don't care if I get to take the shot. I mean, I do. I'd like to take a shot on a big elk. And damn it, if they didn't get a 6x6. But I tell you, the craziest thing about it was how massive those animals are.
They're the size of a cow.
They're bigger, way bigger. So there was 5 of us guys. Now, for the listeners, I'm 6'3", 260 pounds. It took 5 of us to lift the back end of this elk unsuccessfully into the back of an excursion. So much to the point where I grabbed the guide, threw him on the back of the four-wheeler. We headed back. He had to pick up a bobcat. Thank God this elk died on flat ground. So bring the bobcat. The bobcat's carrying a trailer. Get out there. We hooked the trailer up to this Polaris, and then all 5 of us are still at the bobcat trying to make sure this elk lands on the trailer successfully. And I'm telling you, it was I think midnight 30 New Mexico time before we finally got in for supper. And it's not like we quartered the thing successfully that night. We just did what we had to do. Mm-hmm. It is a process, and that is something that I had no idea, because deer, you want to skin a buck, that's not a problem. Hang them up on something that looks like a clothes hanger, cut around the legs, rip the freaking hide down. There's nothing to it.
Yeah, you can have it done in 20 minutes if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. With an elk, no. There's no way. So I understand why there's switchable blades and knives, why there's this, that. We had 4 guys with knives, and after about every 5-6 cuts, trying to get the hide down, slowly, mind you, they're having to resharpen the knife. And that was just wild to me. Now, a little quick story is my buddy that invited me out there. He said, hey, we don't have any internet. We don't have any real TV or anything like that. So you're probably going to get bored. I said, don't worry about me, man. I love the silence. I love the peace. If you could just put a knife in my hand and a stick in the other, I can whittle it and keep myself entertained for hours. Well, when he went into town, he was nice enough, because I didn't fly out there with a knife, but he was nice enough. He picked me up this little bitty pocket knife, probably about 3 inches big, not the blade, the entirety of it. And so they're sitting there and they're sweating with this elk, just having to resharpen the knife, passing the sharpener around. And I said, guys, just, y'all are doing it wrong. Now, keep in mind, I've never been on an elk hunt. I've never seen an elk in real life. But guys, you're doing it wrong. Step out of the way. And I pull out that little bitty pocket knife, open it up, and start.
Did someone get any of that on film?
Pictures.
Or
we got
at least
pictures.
A picture of it?
Yeah, we got pictures. Because they were rolling so hard. They're like, oh, my God, you got to do that one more time. Please. But, it was probably the coolest hunting experience, and I still wasn't even the one that took the elk, but
you just jumped right to the flying out there, and next thing you know, you're cleaning an elk. Go through a little bit of the actual story of the hunt.
Oh, well, it's a lot different out there. It's crazy, because out here we can, if we're just hunting whitetail, you've got the early morning, first light. You've got up until, and then everybody breaks at noon, goes for lunch, and then takes care of the brown mess. But out there,
we lamp hunt a little bit.
Yes, we definitely do. Out there, you have about 5 minutes, 5 solid minutes in the morning, and if you don't utilize those 5 minutes, go on back in. because what the elk will do in New Mexico, at least where we were about 3 hours west of Albuquerque, is they will come down from the ridge while it's still dark. They only water once, and they can drink like 20 gallons. I mean, these beasts are massive, but I learned they only water once. I drink water throughout the day.
Right.
Elk, once a day,
Really?
and they really just store it like a camel. But they come down once, they do that, and they feed, and then when the sun's coming up and everything, you've got about 5 minutes before they go back on top of a ridge. And what they do is they sit on one side of the ridge, and if they see something coming, then they go to the other side of the ridge. So it's not like you can just stalk them like Steve Ornella would have me think.
Is it more, at least where you was at in New Mexico? Is it mountainous is it pretty well clears or trees? What? Give me
Both. So there's where we were, you had terrain, but that terrain was it was flat, and then you got this ridge, and then you've got a half mile of flat, then you got another ridge, then you got a mile of flat, then you got another ridge, and surprisingly, it wasn't as hard as you would think to do that terrain. Like down here, if we're like at our place on the Flint, our little lease over there, you're hitting terrain, but you're also hitting terrain in humidity. You're hitting terrain in, heat, especially opening day of rifle season this year.
Yeah.
But out there it's dry and it's nice and it's cool. So you can actually cover a lot more ground out there a lot easier. But that was, if we're asking about my most memorable hunting experience, it probably had to be elk, because I've been a participant of other people's most memorable hunting experiences. But like I said, for the last probably 15 years, I've been more of a guide than a hunter myself for whitetail.
One thing I've grown to enjoy, and granted, I've only been doing this for a year, so I'm certainly no expert.
Don't sell yourself short.
I'm
no expert either.
I have a long way to go, right? And I haven't even truthfully seen a antlered deer in a tree stand. I see them all going down to my lease on the way down there. I don't see them in my stand or my blind, right? But I enjoy and have enjoyed the process leading up to deer season.
Oh yeah.
You get some. It reminds me of when I was a kid getting excited about Christmas, thinking about everything, right? So that's all I've thought about all year was, I'm going to plant these food plots, and I'm going to move these stands. I'm going to cut these trees, and I get on, YouTube and watching all the, we're doing
how to create funnels,
how to do funnels, how to prescribe burns. We're going to burn off all this understory, midstory, and did any of that really get done? We planted a food plot. That was about it, right?
Hey, well, that's a success.
And we cut some shooting lanes and moved a couple stands. It was so hot.
Yeah.
All summer, and then it seemed like every weekend it wanted to rain.
Well,
then when it quit raining,
have you done the turkey thing yet?
Man, so I wanted to, and I went to NWTF in February.
So have you done?
I have not. All right, been turkey hunting.
If you want to talk about heartbreak in Georgia, turkey hunting now has become heartbreak. When I was even when I was 20 years old, you would hear them, gobbling, you'd hear the hens clucking. This past season, the season before, going out, like, these hens are stealthy. Like, nothing will talk to you. You don't hear it gobbling. If you do, it's crazy far away. I think turkey hunts become so hard in Georgia, but it's also one of the most addicting things.
It is hard in Georgia because most of our properties, at least, private and public, they're so thick and they're not necessarily managed and thinned out. And
coyotes.
We got so many coyotes, bobcats, possums, raccoons. I mean, it's tough. And on my lease, we have a fair amount of creek bottom. It's about 300 acres, and I'd say half of it's creek bottom. And we are ate up with some raccoons. So if you want to go coon hunting after deer season, just let me know.
You got some dogs?
I know a guy in Tennessee. He'll come down in a heartbeat. All I got to do is call him.
Why is it always Tennessee? Tennessee, I think,
That's
is
what
the
they
state
do,
that
man.
raises coon dogs.
It is. No one in Georgia. Everyone likes these. You have one walking around right here. Everyone likes these bird dogs, and we don't bird hunt in Georgia.
I do.
Do you?
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about that right fast.
Quail hunting, baby. Dove hunting, baby. Yeah, you can do that. Dove hunts are sadly one of those things that you have to be like invited to.
It's
Like
hard
it's
to
like
do it, though.
yeah. So like this
It's
past
always on a
year,
power line for some reason.
this past year I didn't get invited to anything, so I was really bummed out because I've got a nice silver wing over and under downstairs that I love to use. But thankfully, I got a buddy who's got a quail plantation,
Oh, yeah.
and so every year he'll at least invite us over to go do a good old traditional hunt with some dogs, and
Yeah.
that is as one of the most beautiful things is seeing the dogs
Watch a
work.
dog work.
Yeah.
It's so fun to watch, whether it's tracking a deer or sniffing out a bird or even watching some of these Walker Coon hounds tree a coon is fun to watch, man.
yeah.
Seeing a good trained dog is something else.
Yeah, so that's why we actually got our pup initially. His name's Traveler. We got him because he's a German Shorthair Pointer, and I tricked the wife into thinking it'd be a family pet, and she tricked me into thinking it would be anything different. Learned really quickly that we would not be able to train him together. She is not consistent with commands. So we have this saying here that he loves her, he respects me. And that's just because he listens to me because I actually use the commands I taught
the
him.
same
She does
words.
not.
I have
Now, my wife's beautiful and I love her, and she's the best thing that ever happened to me. I need to give that disclosure.
agreed, but mine has the same problem with commands as well.
Yeah.
It changes every time, and she gets frustrated with the dog, and it's like, well, you're speaking two different languages every time you say a different word for the same thing.
Oh, the biggest thing for me is his name's Traveler, nickname Trav. Well, a lot of nicknames from Sir Sexy Boy to whatever it could be, as we do with dogs. I don't know why we do that, but she will yell his name when he's doing something he shouldn't be doing. I'm like, no, do not associate his name with negativity. His name is just to get
His attention.
Yes. And so Caesar Milan, I think, put it best. He said, we have to rehabilitate dogs and train humans.
This is true.
Except for I learned I cannot train my wife without getting yelled at. I love her.
And with that, we'll circle back around to more outdoor content. We're not going to get into talking about the wives.
But okay, let's say, what do you want to cover as
I've
far
gone
as...
from looking at one house tomorrow before I go to the Deer Woods to looking at three.
Hey, not bad, man.
Two in Covington, one in Meansville.
Not bad.
And thankfully, they are willing to look at Covington before Meansville because I have to drive past Meansville to get to my deer lease.
You never drive that far. You know me now, man.
Was that?
You know me now. I can put you out there. I can guide you where you need to be.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Like I said, we got a 350-acre lease. There's a 150-acre, what we used to call the homestead, and it's what my stepdad and mom, they downsized, and then they gave it to my stepbrother. And then there's 100 acres on the Flint River, too, which is...
Is all this connected, or you?
No.
You're
Now, the
skipping and
lease,
jumping?
strangely enough, so we got the homestead 150, and you cross the road, and then there's the 350 lease that we have. But there's plenty to do. But my style of hunting isn't sitting in a stand. I got my style of hunting deer from turkey, because I will take turkey hunting over deer
Well, I will
hunting.
take you up on a turkey hunt. I know Georgia don't have hardly any.
Well, it's hit and miss. Like, that's the thing. You can have 2 weeks of quiet, and then you can have 3 days that they're on that property, and then 2 more weeks of quiet. So it was nice. My mom married well when she was she got remarried, and I was about 11 years old, and that's the only thing that saved me because I was raised by 3 women before that, and but the fact that I had those woods to play on, got really into it. But when I was a teenager and started getting into hunting, because again, I never had a father figure growing up.
Right.
And anyway, when I started getting into it, I'd wake up in the morning before I went to school. I'd go out, I'd listen. If I didn't hear any hens clucking, done. But that's how it would be. If they're not there, they're not there.
Right.
And so it's hard to, you get a buddy coming down for a hunt from Atlanta or something like that, and you're like, cool. But, the odds are not in our favor with this.
Especially around here. I went to NWTF in February and got the turkey bug and
The turkey bug will get you.
I bought me some calls at NWTF. I'm like, I'm gonna learn how to do this. And of course I start out with a diaphragm, which turns out is one of the, it's not what you're supposed to start with, right?
Oh, you gotta learn how to get rid of that gag reflex real quick.
So anyhow, I was still having to drive up to Buckhead, an old corporate job, right? And I was that guy in the Dodge truck with the camo hat on the dash, with the diaphragm, with the windows rolled down, sitting there doing whatever noises I could come out with in downtown Atlanta traffic on a random Tuesday morning. Yeah, that's right. And you sit there and you say, "Oh, that sounds good." And then you actually record yourself and listen back to it and say, "I think I'd better just deer hunt a turkey."
Well, the thing I had the hardest problem with the diaphragm was volume control, because you've got to have that right amount of moisture to it, and if you just go, that's cool, but it doesn't make that sound when I try to do it most of the time. It's more like a
right. Yeah, you about to spit it out.
So I've got to yell as a hen. That does not bring them in.
Right.
It's one of those things. It's not like riding a bike. If you don't use it, you do lose it.
Yeah,
you really do. It's something you got to practice.
You listen to any of these guys talk about it outdoors. They're up in North Georgia, and they're big in the turkey hunting.
Oh, there's great turkey up in North Georgia,
and turkey calling, and they're always talking about they're practicing it. They'll have old Kevin Van Sice on, and Kevin Van Sice will sit there and tell you if he's practicing hours a day, and damn.
Yep. And also too, a great way to practice, if you've got the time, go to any Bass Pro Shop in April.
Yeah.
And you will just hear turkey hunters calling to each other throughout the entirety of the Bass Pro Shop. Makes you happy a little bit. Makes your wife nudge you and say, quit, but makes you happy.
What's always fun is you go to either NWTF or Turkey Rama in Georgia or any of these, and for some reason the duck guys want to blow their loud ass duck calls in a turkey convention. I know the duck hunters out there, they're really proud of their duck calls and how loud they can be. But
see, I've only been duck hunting twice in my life. And it's because I haven't been invited to be more. I would love to go for more times. I've just never been invited, and I don't know the spots. I don't have the decoys, and I haven't caught the bug, quote unquote.
Right.
But when I have been, it's like, all right, let's go wade in this freezing cold water
at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Put out some decoys, 1,000,000 decoys. And then let's go hide and stay in this freezing cold water. And, I'm stretching to see how I can get that kind of addiction. But, I will say that I had a great time. I think there's a little bit of suffering that has to go with every hunt. And
I think part of the draw, granted, I haven't been duck hunting at all. I've got some buddies that they have pretty well hung up deer hunting to go duck hunting.
It becomes
these guys, my buddies, and if they actually ever listen to this, they'll know exactly who they are.
You talking about Ted and
that's
Frank,
right. Ted and Frank,
Rod.
They were driving out Friday night to Arkansas, staying up all night, and then they would basically just drive all night to Arkansas and go straight to their duck hole and pretty much just set up decoys and wait till daybreak, and
that's it.
And then hunt Saturday morning, go eat lunch. There really ain't nothing to do in the afternoon when you're duck hunting.
No.
And then they'd hunt Sunday morning, pack their shit, and drive back to Atlanta and go to work Monday morning. I'm like, y'all are crazy.
Can't do that. Even this past weekend, I knew, well, one, I've been having long COVID, so that's one issue. I didn't actually get to go out on and guide a lot of the buddies like I normally do. I went out on one, and it was just a little bit too much for me, just because of health issues. But that's it. You know, they pack it up, they go back on Sunday, and they wake up Monday, and after spending 4 days in the woods, and go to work. I took Monday off.
Yeah.
I needed a little bit of rest.
That's the perks of having the idea of working for yourself, right?
Oh,
or at least setting your own schedule. So
it's nice. Well,
fine,
is there
man.
anything else you want me to touch as a closing attorney?
Anything you want to talk on specific?
I mean, really just the fact that there's so much behind the scenes that your clients will never see, because all they see is maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending upon if we have to wait on funding. But they never see what goes on behind the scenes with you guys or with us. But we only get them for a little bit of time. And my big thing is, I only want to do happy law. And luckily I'm with some great guys that do unhappy law to allow me to do happy law. And so I do adoptions, real estate, probate, estate planning, but I don't do contested things because I don't like the conflict.
Right.
Why'd you become an attorney? That's a good question. Go back in time, slap myself in the face about that one. But
So I said that sounds like a story we need to just jump into. And
all right.
Zach, why do you become an attorney?
Well, see, I was always that strange kid, being that I'm 6'3", 250 right now, 260. But growing up, best way I know how to put it is, when you had those kids earlier on in your elementary school and everything, and they had to be held up, pictures of smiling faces, sad faces, and guess what reaction that is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was that kid. I had to learn a lot of reactions, but I'm also just very socially awkward. I don't know what's appropriate to say a lot of times. And things that I find funny, I've learned that a lot of people do not. But
they're missing out.
Oh, thank you, man. But I became an attorney because I just had the mind for it.
Sure.
And I did not want to be uncomfortable financially. And I thought, okay, I could do this. I first majored in college in psychology. And
How'd that make you feel?
oh, well, here's how it made me feel. It made me feel like I'm gonna have to listen to people's problems all day. So screw that. I don't want to do that.
What did it make you feel that way?
Because you have to listen to people's problems all day in psychology. Oh, this man is psychoanalyzing me right now.
I'm just having a little fun with you, Zach.
So I became an attorney, so I have to listen to people's problems all day.
But you're a good attorney, and you try to foresee problems before they become problems and solve them before they're a real problem.
I will tell you, there are bad attorneys out there. It's like any profession.
Any profession.
Yeah, you take a good cop and a bad cop, a good doctor, a bad doctor. It means any profession. There's good ones, bad ones out there. I do like to think of myself as a good one, but I will say there are times where I'm so overwhelmed and stressed, and when this client calls because they got a broken fingernail, that I really just don't want to deal with it, and it might take me a day to get the mental strength to give them a call back. But for the most part, I've tried to shape my practice into being something incredibly positive. Like I said, adoptions and real estate are my two favorite things in this world, next to my wife hunting and my wife number one. But
always have to put that in there. Wife.
Yeah, she could listen to this.
I'll send her a link personally.
You nice fellow. But yeah, so I've really tried to shape it that way. And the problem is just there are there's no way to break into a new market as an attorney. So we came from Upson County where we ran real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I came up to Griffin trying to do that, joined Hogbore, made friends and a lot of great friends, you yourself included now. And I'm very fortunate to have made those friends. But I will say, it doesn't bring you in business. And so that was the sad thing.
Isn't that funny how, unfortunately, just having friends doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be busy with business.
Well, there you got to separate it.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, like this one person I'm thinking of, really became a close friend of mine. Was real sweet and love every time I get to see her. But I've never gotten the first closing from her.
Mm.
But that's something you have to separate because there's a difference between business and
Yeah, I will say sometimes if I'm not going to even say she because I don't know, that doesn't matter.
No, I said she. You're fine.
You did say she, but so that narrows it down some. But regardless, unfortunately, as an agent, if you're a list agent, sometimes you don't really fight back or push back on closing attorney if a buyer writes in a contract that they want to close with XYZ attorney firm. Not saying that you can't, because everything, as you know, in a real estate transaction is negotiable. And if I want to close with my closing attorney, I'm going to say, this is who I want to close with.
I couldn't even close on my own house because the builders made me drive to McDonough.
Yeah.
And go to another firm because they said, if you don't want to buy the house, that's fine, but you're going to have to do this if you want to buy the house. I'm like, you SOBs.
Dealing with a builder is a different ballgame sometimes.
Yeah. Dealing with a lot of things, man. Y'all's agents have to go through so much. But that is one cool thing, though, is getting to experience how other law firms handle closings. And I have to say, I do think from the 3 other firms I've been to, stealth-wise, I don't let them know I'm an attorney.
You roll in your T-shirt and Crocs.
Oh, yeah. Got to wear the Crocs. Always sport the Crocs. That's rule number 1. But they don't do things well. Like when my wife sold her house, the buyer chose a different attorney, of course. And because the agent's the one that does this.
Most individuals,
who do you want?
They have no clue
Yeah.
of who to go. So it's usually us saying, hey, here's who I have a relationship with. They'll take care of us. And 9 times out of 10, they follow along.
As an agent, though, you want to take your client somewhere to where it feels special, where it feels nice, where it feels, you want it to be a pleasant experience. So I don't fault
sometimes
that.
It's an event.
Yeah.
You want it to be an event, a memorable event for your clients.
You do. You really do.
And you want it to be a pleasant event.
And so, you've got certain clientele. For instance, if we're closing in McDonough, I'm probably going to at least tuck in my shirt. If we're closing in Barnesville, I'm probably going to come more comfortable. And it's not because of the difference in people. It's just that I've learned that, let's say I'm in Barnesville, I've seen people feel more like they can talk to you. They can ask you questions. They don't feel intimidated. They don't feel like you're, this hierarchical thing.
Right.
And
you're not old Ken Nugent that's talking to him on the TV news.
Yeah. And I'd much rather someone feel comfortable with me to be able to ask me questions. And dress has a lot to do with that. Yeah. And but then you go to certain other areas and you want, that suit and tie to come in because you want to, really bedazzle your client. So the agents that I do talk to, I always tell them, hey, let me know if I need to dress up for this one.
Yeah. Well, and part of that could be just the client or the type of property that we're closing on, right? So if I bring you a closing that we're closing on 125 acres of hunting property, I'm gonna be like Zach. Wear some camo, man.
Yeah, yeah,
We're gonna talk hunting while we're signing papers.
yeah.
But
And
if we're talking about a fancy house on Heron Bay in the golf course community, we might need to wear some polos at least.
maybe some short sleeve collared polos.
Yeah.
No, no. I mean, but that's the thing is, and you just have to play to the client, and that's again another thing that the agent should communicate to the attorney. I think because if the attorney always shows up in a coat and tie, that could not make that experience pleasant. And the thing is people just aren't comfortable saying that because they don't have a relationship like that with the attorney. But I mean, you're exactly right. If you're selling this hunting acreage, you don't want a coat and tie dude. And if you're selling this $1.5 million house, you probably want a coat and tie dude. But, that's another thing that I want to put off on the agents. Let the attorney know what kind of experience will make their client comfortable.
So really and truly, that just comes down. Everything always circles around to communication
And the agent.
And
that's why y'all have that 24/7 hour job that is terrible and I would never want to do. The mud, grit, and grind that y'all have to do is just incredible to me. I would never be able to do it, and it is such an admirable thing. And the agent friends that I do have, they never get a vacation.
Yeah.
Their cell phone's always on, and
It is.
I
As we're
don't
filming,
envy that.
as we're recording this, I'm scheduling 3 showings tomorrow when I was planning on going to the deer camp first thing tomorrow
Yeah,
morning.
there you go. Perfect example.
So we're showing 3 houses, and then I'm heading to Deer Woods.
But that's dedication, that's love, and that is advocating for your client. And that is absolutely fantastic. But also just for all the agents out there, remember, talking to your client, talk to your attorney too.
And use your attorney or bounce ideas or questions off of them, because if they're able to get in front of an issue in the contract writing phase, it's going to save us a lot of time and headache come closing. No different than that deal that I was bouncing off you the other day. That lease purchase deal that ended up falling through, by the way. But that was
I would have probably been a little scared of that one myself.
It was a little scary, and it worked out better probably for everybody. But if you don't really know, or if you got a complex deal, and you're especially concerned about equitable interest, and who has the upper hand, or what risks are involved in how a contract is written, get some attorney eyes on that thing before it gets signed for sure.
But yeah, so that's it. And trying to think of anything else I want real estate agents to know. Just one, we really appreciate you guys. And if you don't have an open communication with your closing attorney, then you should probably start thinking differently, because when you have these questions, yeah, you've got your broker, you've got these people that can answer maybe these questions, but when you have like some crazy probate process, or you have some crazy this or that or the other, or even just like you said, contract questions, I mean, you can have a seasoned broker, that's great, and they probably do know the answer, but it doesn't hurt to get the second opinion, if nothing else, from the actual attorney that knows, that studied to do this law thing. And we want to make the transaction as easy as possible. We want to make sure you get to the closing table, every single one of us. Oh, talking about horror stories, one of those closings that I got to sit in on, it got postponed because the time slot. So it was a 2:00 time slot, and the lender didn't get the package to the attorney until around 1:30. And so it wasn't enough time for them to prep it up for the closing. So it got to be continued. And the issue with that is now these people are homeless until, But
Was it just a couple hour delay, or did they kick you a whole day because they already had the rest of the day booked?
Yep. And so we had to actually wait over the weekend. And so we're talking about 4 days before it could actually close. And this is not my firm, by the way, because we have definitely ordered pizza at 8 o'clock at night because we had to wait on funding from people over in California that didn't care that we close at 5. But it's that kind of stuff, and you just want to find that attorney that's going to make it close no matter what. We've got a deal where our office is shut down on December 30th for the holidays. We're coming in just because we want to make sure that it closes. We want to do everything we can for the agents. And, I've learned not every law firm does that, and that's kind of sad. I wish every law firm would do that. Another thing that law firms will do is not explain anything to you. They just sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here, and then they leave. You never know their name. You never know anything about them.
Don't even really know what you're signing.
No, nothing explained to you. They don't tell you anything. It's just you can either sign it or you can't. If you don't want to sign it, then you're not getting the house. And that's also an issue I see with closing attorneys with the limited amounts that I've spied on. But, like I said, we just think differently. But we want you to get those closings. We want those people to get those houses. We want those sellers to get their money, and we want y'all to get y'all's commission. And if that means coming in and staying till 9 o'clock at night, we're going to do it.
At the end of the day, it's all about the clients and making sure that they're able to get either their house sold or their dream home purchased or their next investment property purchased, and making sure that this smooth and seamless process is possible. And at the end of the day, everyone loves customer service. And that's truly what real estate is, no different than any other industry. It's all about the customer and their experience. And if you don't take that extra step when it's needed to make sure that your customers are happy and taken care of, then you're not in it for the right reasons. You're not going to be around for long, no different than any other business.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you a compliment here, Dakota. And sorry to make you a little squeamish by doing it, but yeah, you were one of the good ones, man.
I appreciate that.
Because there's some bad ones out there. There are ones that I won't name names again, but I've dealt with, and I've seen the disclosures sent to the agent. The agent does not relay those disclosures to the client. And then after inspection, they find this hole in the wall, which was disclosed, or they find that this deck had rotted and it was disclosed.
Right.
But they are just trying their best
to hold a deal together.
Just to hold the deal together and get the commission, get them out of the way.
It's dirty.
And yeah, so there are some bad ones out there, but I'm telling you, man, the compliment I'm going to give you is you're one hell of an agent. I can't talk to you as a hunter because I've never been with you, so I don't know.
We'll have to change that.
I know you're a great agent.
I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, always down to change the hunting thing.
Yeah, we'll have to peel some time away to change that last remark there. We can go hunting together, and you can see just how bad I am.
Well, how's your shop, Lace? How are you? What yardage are you comfortable in?
Well, at my lease, in honest,
here in Georgia,
there's
if you're
not
100 or under, you're good.
There's not too many spots on our lease where you need to poke it out past 100 yards.
Exactly. Yeah.
The shot I took and made a great shot on, I'll pat myself on the back, last year was about 75 yards. And
shoulder, heart.
I did a heart shot. So I was watching too many archery hunting videos. So I shot it like I was shooting a bow, which honestly I saved both front shoulders, which is nice, but I did have to track it about 70 yards before it peeled over. But that
adrenaline in the meat, love it.
Yeah, nice little fat doe. And this was after center punching a oak sapling the morning of the same day. So it was actually the same doe that I shot at in the morning. Came back that afternoon, and she didn't survive the evening.
I'll tell you a quick little funny story. So when I went to law school, that's where I actually made the buddies that I still hang out with today, minus one buddy from undergrad, but it happens to be local. But they come down every year. We always go out on the hunt. And I turned my one seasoned friend who had been with me since law school. We met in first year of law school, brought him down, been hunting ever since. So he knows the terrain. He knows the land because it's been now about 15 years. And I put him out there to guide another friend. And the other friend took a shot, got it. I came, looked at it, and he messed up the backstrap.
Oh, no.
And that's the only thing I could think about. I didn't care about the antlers. I didn't care about anything else. I said, you messed up the meat. And my friend said, I told you he would say something about that.
That's funny.
But that's really, like, at this point, all I really care about. I give a damn about the antlers.
It doesn't matter how
I just
long you
want
put them
that
on the
meat in the
smoker.
freezer.
I have not been able to tenderize an antler. Granted,
Yeah, that's true.
I haven't shot an antler deer either. That's just what everyone says, right?
Okay. I can put you on one of them.
Remember, I said I hadn't even seen an antler deer in the woods. I see them on the way down to the lease. so Zach, I appreciate your time, man. It's been an awesome chat, and we'll certainly have some more in the future. But for anyone that's in the Griffin-Spalding County area and surrounding counties, how would someone or an agent go about getting in touch with you, man?
We have a long-winded law firm name: Pasley, Nuce, Mallory, and Davis. But I will say, I think it definitely unbiasedly, is the best firm around. And but yeah, just throw us in there. We're in Thomaston, Barnesville, Griffin, where my main office is in Griffin, and McDonough. And man, we would love to have more and more and more. We could never have too many real estate closings. We just want to make it the best thing for the buyers and the sellers and make it the happiest experience we can, because that's really what it is a happy experience.
Yep. So guys, I appreciate the talk. And remember, whether you're tracking trophy game, scouting your dream home, or hunting for the next great investment, remember, every hunt has a story. I'm Dakota Oshley, the outdoor agent.
And I'm Zachary Davis.
And we'll see you next time.